I want to remind you that if you do make comments in the comment section, realize that other people are able to read these, not just people attending the live today. Sometimes people are surprised about that because the rest of the groups that I offer are private. So for example, the MeetUp group, you have to register and join, and then you're only sharing your private lives with the other people in the group. The same with the Advanced Community Forum and my online course. Those are all private groups. But this group is public. People can drop in and kind of learn more about what we do. But it is so helpful when you ask your questions, because I hear all the time from people who listen to the live or watch the recording later. It'll be posted to YouTube. That they say this has been so helpful. It opened up their lives and their relationships to deal with some of the problems that they've had in neurodivergent relationships. Let's see here. I've got a couple more basics to tell you, but I think we'll go ahead and get started with the topic, and then we can talk about a variety of other things that if you have questions. It doesn't have to be on this topic, but I think empathy is the most important part of what doesn't work quite right in neurodivergent relationships. And remember, neurodivergent relationship, in my book, what that represents is someone who's neurotypical, involved in a relationship, a marriage, a partnership, a close friendship, or even an adult child who's a neurotypical. So you've got neurotypical and a neurodiverse people interacting with each other. And because those systems are so very different, they create neurodivergence or pulling apart. And what's the significant piece that seems to be problematic is empathy. So I can get more into what I mean by that. Empathy dysfunction explains most of the problems we experience with our neurodiverse loved ones. As far as I'm concerned, it's the most important factor. Without empathy, neurotypicals keep attempting to have an empathic connection with someone who might care about you, who may love you, who may be very sensitive to your needs, but be unable to still communicate and connect with you on that level. And that is so stressful. So once you have, what I wrote down here is, once you've mastered the mysteries of your loved one's empathy dysfunction, you stand a much better chance of surviving and even enlivening your relationship. You need to get it. You neurotypicals need to get that empathy dysfunction is what keeps slipping up, keeps getting in the way. The timing is off. The comments are going down a transactional path rather than listening to what your heart is talking about. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll through my folks here to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, I don't know if anybody's left a comment yet. Okay. So we're going to understand in this month's conferences, we're going to understand the patterns of Aspie communication and how to survive the criticism. We'll explore the feelings of guilt we have over failed communication with our loved ones. And I've also had a couple of people send me questions ahead of time that they wanted me to answer, and I'm very willing to do this. So if you send in a question, try to do it before the last minute so I have a chance to look at it. And hi Lynn, hi Susan, got a couple more people joined in. But if you don't send the questions to me ahead of time, it's hard for me to include them. But I'll definitely pick them up next time for our next Dr. Kathy's office hours. That's what I call this, is Dr. Kathy's office hours. So let me tell you what's coming up in our conferences. And you can attend the conferences if you're a member of MeetUp, my MeetUp group, which I posted on the intro today, or if you're a member of the Advanced Community Forum. They're sort of different. MeetUp is a place to join when you're just learning about this, just getting used to how this all works. And and it's a international group. So is the Advanced Community Forum. The Advanced Community Forum is another source for getting together and talking about these things, but it's really with people who have probably spent more time. They've read more books. They've been in therapy. They've gone to more of these meetings, and they're really ready to kind of really take that a deeper dive into the material and learn how they can transform themselves, not just fix the relationship. This is really about changing you. Hi, Linda. Suzanne. Oh my goodness. Good. We got lots of people today. So the first video conference that I'm offering is called Surviving the Criticism. That'll be on Tuesday and Wednesday, June 6th and June 7th. I try to offer the video conferences twice so that if you miss one, you can get to the other. And one of those will be recorded and stored at the Advanced Community Forum, so you can go in if you're a member of that group and listen to the video again. In fact, we've got stored videos and teleconferences recordings there from many years past. So it's very helpful to go in. The idea is, how do you survive the criticism? When a partner is neurodiverse, when they have autism, we neurotypicals hear their lack of empathy or their empathy dysfunction as critical. They say, but you didn't say this. Or they go down the path of the facts or the words as opposed to your intention, what you were trying to say. They miss the gestures entirely, for example. And in order to survive the criticism, it really is important to realize that they think they're just talking with you. They think they're just having a conversation based on facts, whereas neurotypicals are having a conversation based on interaction, connecting, knowing you, and wanting them to know you back. So surviving the criticism really means to step out of that transactional way of communicating. And if that doesn't make sense, ask me a question, put it in the comment section, and I will respond. But I want to get through the general material here first, and then we'll come back. The next conference is the teleconference. And, by the way, the video conferences are usually a small group. I usually have 8 to 10 people in the video conference so we can talk to each other. And when I record that, I don't record your face. I just record the audio so that people can listen to the topic, not necessarily your privacy is protected. The teleconferences is again on this general topic of when empathy fails and about empathy dysfunction. It's a controversial subject, so I try to spend a lot of time talking about why it's so controversial. It's part of the diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome or high-functioning autism, is that the empathy is not there. It's because there is a delay in processing thoughts and words and feelings for the neurodiverse person. It's because they have some context blindness, so they don't know which cues they should respond to, which ones they should let go. So what happens is that empathy triad of empathy, context, and conversation, reverberating reciprocal conversation, because that's missing, the person who's neurodiverse will tend to go down their own transactional path, what they are trying to understand, not necessarily what you are trying to invite them into. Does that make sense? So, and it looks like Susan has a question. So does this also delay or stop them from assuming responsibility for hurt feelings or blaming me for not understanding them, so it's always my fault? Yes. When you have empathy dysfunction, you're not asking yourself, how do I sound to the other person? You're not asking, how is this working for them? If you are hurt by something that's said, if the neurotypical is hurt by something that's said by the neurodiverse person, the neurodiverse person will assume that that's your responsibility, because if they didn't intend to cause harm, then you're just assuming criticism or harm unnecessarily. Empathy dysfunction is huge. So in therapy, what I have to do, or even in my group, when I have my course involves both neurotypicals and neurodiverse folks that can take the course together and talk about these things, I emphasize how important it is for the neurodiverse person to realize that there's more going on than they think is going on. And if their neurotypical partner lets them know that they're hurt or offended or confused or, don't like what was just said, they need to accept that and try to repair the relationship. It's not so easy to do when you don't have empathy, though, because you're not recognizing that the other person has a response that's different than your intention. So we can get back to that in a minute, too. So when empathy fails, it causes all kinds of harm, as Susan is talking about. It causes the person who doesn't have empathy to be very confused about what's going on in the room. They often don't understand what the punchline of the joke is because they weren't following the innuendo. Okay? Or they feel more comfortable working in professional fields where it's they don't really have to deal with the interpersonal world so much, because it's the interpersonal world where there's this layer upon layer of innuendo and understanding and empathic connection that has to be taken into consideration, or we just can't get to the bottom of the problem. It just keeps getting stirred up but never solved. Okay, the next conference, the video Killer conference is on June 15th. And this, they're all, these conferences are shown on the schedule in the MeetUp forum and in the Advanced Community forum. They're all shown right there. I also show the conferences that will be held for the course participants. And my online course, I really recommend taking that because I explain all these kind of things in the course through the series of several videos. And you can take the course with your neurodiverse or your neurotypical loved one. Oh, it says somebody's having a hard time hearing me. What I've noticed is when I see those comments, for whatever reason, the recording has the sound just fine. So it might be, Edie, that you'll have to go back and look at the YouTube later so that you can hear it. I'm sorry about that. I don't really know how to fix it. I've had that comment made a few times. And I'll get back to the other part of what you're saying there too, Edie. So the second video conference is Decoding the Patterns of Aspie Communication. And that's a big one too. That's again held on 2 different days, June 13th and June 14th. Decoding the Patterns. The first part to decoding the pattern of Aspie communication for neurotypicals is to stop assuming that your partner has empathy. You can't assume that they can read between the lines, that they can understand that you might say no and smile because no means, well, I don't really mean no, but I have some reservations. They're going to have a hard time reading all that stuff because they don't have empathy. All right? So in this video conference, we'll talk about mostly the work that neurotypicals have to do. How do you step back and ask yourself, how do I say this differently so that my Aspie can understand me? And then the fourth video conference is why do we feel guilty? And this is going to be held on Tuesday and Wednesday. Remember, these particular conferences are for neurotypicals only. I also have a monthly conference for my group that's both for neurotypicals and neurodiverse, and that's that topic is posted in their forum, and it's private for that group. Although if you take the course, you'll be able to go to that monthly conference too. And I can talk more about that in a minute because it's pretty fascinating to have both neurotypicals and neurodiverse talking together. Okay, one more person is saying they're having a hard time hearing me. I've got the sound as loud as I can go. Okay. this last one, why do we feel guilty? It's part of the empathy dysfunction piece. As an empathic neurotypical, what you do is you frequently are checking, like I am, like people can't hear me. We're checking to see what can I do so that I'm heard. Not just auditory hearing, but literally understanding, listening. Empathy is the art of checking in to make sure that we're heard. And when the other person nods or says, oh yeah, it sounds pretty good, or I get you, or thank you for that, then we continue. If, on the other hand, we keep trying with our autistic loved ones and they just sort of roll their eyes or turn around and walk away, it, it feels like we didn't get across to that person, and so we try harder. We feel guilty after a while because we're not getting through and we must be doing something wrong. As opposed to maybe we are in a way doing something wrong because we're using an empathic prompting of the empathy dysfunction individual and expecting them to understand that empathic prompting, and they don't. They don't understand what to do with that. So then we keep trying harder and harder and feel worse and worse and worse. So you know how what that saying is about trying something that doesn't work over and over again and expecting it to work. That's just a definition of insanity. It does not work to use an empathic approach with a transactional thinker. It does work to be kind, to be sensitive, to be caring, but to assume that they can read between the lines is probably not going to work. And then the last conference that I want to talk about is for new members of our MeetUp group. Julie is our ambassador, and she offers a free video conference to everybody who's a member of the MeetUp group to join and come and talk about, just in general, what it's like to be, learning about this stuff for the first time. And also she helps you navigate the various conferences that you might attend. So it's really valuable when you sign up to attend Julie's new member orientation meeting. It'll be on June 15th at 3. Now remember, all of these are listed on the calendar, on the MeetUp calendar, and on the Advanced Community Forum. And if you're on the MeetUp group, all you have to do is click register for the event. If it's a paid event, you have to pay your fee in order to get the Zoom link. If it's free, you just need to attend at the time that it's scheduled. If you're a member of the Advanced Community Forum, you don't really, all you have to do is mark that you're interested. There's no fee. All the events are free to you for an annual fee to join that group. Okay, now I want to talk about, and I'll get to the questions in a minute. I want to talk about the course. The course itself also has a forum for people to meet and talk with each other. The course is Asperger's Syndrome and Relationships, kind of dealing with the chaos and the heartbreak of these relationships. And I talk about all these basic principles in there that you can use to improve your relationship. But in addition, we have a forum where you can talk to each other, but we have a monthly video conference for both neurotypicals and neurodiverse. And what was really fascinating, or is really fascinating, is each time I think the neurotypicals learn a lot by listening to other neurodiverse folks, not just your partner or your loved one. It's fascinating, I think, for neurotypicals to see the patterns of Aspie communication. So, for example, I don't think I'm giving anything away here, but at the last monthly conference, one person was asking the neurodiverse members if they either have emotions or if they're aware of them. It's a fairly kind of, difficult question, but she wanted to know. And one neurodiverse guy said, "Nope, I don't have any emotions. Don't have any emotions at all." And everybody kind of looked at him like, "Gosh, that's kind of odd." And then another neurodiverse man said, "Well, I do have emotions, but I don't have words for them, so I never say them." So that's back to the delay feature. I'll get and what that means is that he's aware of them, but the timing that it would take for him to sort for a word to describe it, and then empathically to say it in a way that the other person would understand what he's saying, what he's as he's describing his feelings. That takes too long, so he doesn't say anything. Then the third person said something even more profound. He said, "Huh, I have emotions. I have words for them. I just keep them locked away in a box. And I forget to open up the box and talk about what I'm feeling." So I think this is every person on the spectrum coming up with their own notion of empathy dysfunction. The feelings are locked away, or they're not even aware that they have feelings, although by the way, the person who said that he doesn't have any emotions, when he heard the other two explanations, he said, "Oh yeah, that's what I do. They're just locked away." So this delay is really important. This is called alexithymia, by the way. This delay means that if the person on the spectrum is going to express how they feel, they need to take their time, really think about it, sort for words, ask themselves, what words does my partner need me to say so that she or he knows what I'm feeling? It's a very complex process that neurotypicals do very comfortably. It just takes a lot longer. So I want to get back because some of the questions are exactly, what we've been talking about. Let's see here. I want to get to the top of all these questions. So I think Debbie says, "Hubby never looks me in the eye. We sit side by side when eating, and I turn to him when talking, but he never turns to me. When he does talk, he goes on and on like he's trying to teach me something. He doesn't try to interact with me. It never feels like a conversation." Right. Because without empathy, you don't realize that looking at the other person is a signal that you're ready to connect. If you have empathy dysfunction, you're transactional, so you're listening to words and you're waiting for the words to stimulate something for you to say, and if there's nothing there, or if he's not asked a question, he doesn't talk. So eye contact isn't like you're supposed to stare at somebody. It's not that you have to have eye contact to connect, but it is a gesture that invites the other person into your reality, and people on the spectrum often don't know that. Sometimes they make very good eye contact. They've learned to mask and look as if they're listening, but they're still waiting for the words. And then when she says, Debbie goes on to say, "He's trying to teach me something," that's that transactional approach. He's just making an argument for his position. He's not necessarily trying to work out something with you. He's not connecting. He thinks a conversation is just to tell you what he thinks. That makes it kind of limited for the rest of us, doesn't it? Oh, Susan says, "Does the course have an expiration date?" The course, it sort of does. It's for a year, but if you renew and you're in the community as well, the price to renew for the community is only half. So if you take it for the year, you'll be in the community and the course, and then you can renew for half. By the way, also, I recommend that both people sign up for the course if you're doing this with your partner, because then you can each go in to the community under your own name. You can watch the videos whenever you want to. You don't have to sit down together and do it. So I just think it's better that way. In addition, the course is built on the most recent book that I published. Empathy is More Than Words is the book. It's on Amazon. Empathy is More Than Words. And the reason I chose that title is that we neurotypicals know that empathy is a lot more than words. It is the gestures, it's the intention, it's the looks on your face. It's trying to say it in the way that the other person will understand. So Debbie goes on, let's see, she says, should we be sitting across from each other and try to attempt eye contact? Yes and no. For people on the spectrum, um, face-to-face contact is unnerving for a lot of them. They know that something's being expected of them, empathy, which they can't do very well. And so a lot of times it is easier for them to sit side by side or to take a break. On the other hand, if you are sitting across the table from each other, I try to encourage people on the spectrum to look up and notice the smiles, because a lot of times they're looking down when they're across the table from you. They're just looking down and they're talking, and they're afraid to look up, or because they'll get too much information. Because of that delay, if you've got too many signals coming at you, it gets overwhelming and makes you anxious. So it's not as simple as making eye contact. We don't really mean that. We neurotypicals, when we say look me in the eye, we don't really mean that. We mean listen to me, notice me, pay attention to what I'm trying to tell you, is what we're really saying. Eye contact isn't the issue directly. So Maria Blanca, she says, I can identify with your experience, really. Just goes on and on and on. I plan to tell him to give me the short answer versus the 10 to 20 minute answer next time I inquire, ask him a question. We'll see how that goes. You can give direction like that. You can say to your autistic loved one, I don't need a long answer. The problem is they don't know what you really want is to connect. They think that you want information. And of course, when they begin asking you questions, the reason it becomes unnerving is they're being transactional. They want information. They're going down this path of asking this question and this question, this question, this question, and neurotypicals will feel grilled. They'll feel like, would you just stop with all the questions? So does that make sense? They're going for information because that's what transactional people do. What neurotypicals do is we go for connection. We're just trying to be there with that other person. Then we might ask a question or two to clarify and get more information. But information isn't the first thing we're going for. In fact, one of the members of the forum, the advanced forum, mentioned that her therapist identified that the neurotypical was engaging in collaborative communication. Collaborative. She used that word. It's interactive. It's trying to connect. It's looking for a way to understand your world and to have you understand my world. But people on the spectrum, because of the empathy dysfunction, they don't engage in collaborative discussion. They might engage in negotiation, like who's going to win. They may take 20 minutes to explain their position because they figure if they explain it thoroughly enough with you, you'll agree with them. But that's not collaboration, is it? Yeah, exactly, Susan. Susan says they have in their mind how they want to say something. They don't really know how to shorten the explanation. Absolutely. The neurodiverse person has in their mind what they're trying to tell you, but why are they telling it to you? They're telling you so that they're understood, but that's not what we do. We talk so that we understand them and we're understood. It's both. So Sarah says, have you tried to explain this to the ASD partner in this way? In my experience as the NT, my partner would not connect to this explanation. I'm not sure what you mean, which explanation, Sarah, so maybe you can clarify that for me. But in general, it is difficult to explain to a transactional person what I do mean about connecting or collaborative conversation. And remember, most of us are talking about adults on the spectrum who were not identified as children, so they've been engaging in masking. They've been learning how to engage in what they think is what is going on in the room, but it really is just imitating a behavior. So they may think they're engaging in a give and take collaborative discussion um, when they're really just engaging in words. So you know what I do, Sarah, is a lot of times I will start with my neurodiverse folks and I will say something like, there's more going on for your neurotypical than you are picking up, and that maybe you will ever be able to pick up. In fact, one of my neurodiverse group members in the course, he says, I've just come to believe that my wife has my neurotypical wife has a spidey sense. He calls it a spidey sense because she's picking up things, she's responding to things that he can't see or hear or feel or taste or touch. But at least he's acknowledging that there's something else going on. There's some other kind of energy exchange going on that he's missing. And that's respectful. At any rate, right, empathy. It's tough to know how to explain empathy when you don't have empathy. But what they do have is the ability to put the pieces together in the long run. So when they have empathy dysfunction, I'll say make notes, look up periodically, and do your best to notice that your wife or your husband's gestures, and then even if it's 20 minutes later or a day later or a week later, you can go back and say, hey, I think this is maybe what you were talking about. So they can analyze the data set and eventually come to understand what the neurotypical is talking about. It just doesn't feel the same as in the moment. But if they try to pass off their questions in the transactional, their controlling sort of behaviors, if they try to pass that off as empathy, we feel it. We know it's not true. Let's see here. I was looking at another comment. Lots of comments are popping up here. Linda, I feel like I can't do anything right. He always has a better way. It is always the best. I can't even empty the dishwasher right. I've learned to just let him do it. So that's not okay. What Linda's referring to is the transactional person tends to be so adamant about their way of knowing something that the neurotypical, interactive, collaborative person tends to just shut down. We hear their attempt to give us their opinion as the end of the conversation. And they think it is the end because they tell you how to load the dishwasher. When if we were advising somebody else about how to load the dishwasher, we might say nothing. We might say, hey, I found a way that works really great for cups. Can I show you? We find a way to invite the other person to share in the dishwasher loading as opposed to just drop in an opinion and then turn around and walk away. So a tip that I think you neurotypicals need to take up is when your neurodiverse person begins doing the transactional stuff, this is how I do it, and then they quit, you can say, thank you so much for your tip. I have another way. Because they don't mean to put you down. They think they're being helpful. It's just not very helpful, is it? I don't know if that helps you, Linda. I hope so. Because if you feel like a doormat, the relationship doesn't work, does it? So let's see here. I think there was one other comment earlier. Don't want to miss that. They were popping in so fast. Oh, back to Edie, yes. She was saying the volume was bad. And she says, what I'm hungry and yearning for is answers for the heartbreak with my 2 adult ASD kids with ADHD and parental alienation for a deceased other parent. And we all have PTSD, worsened now by my health, brain issues, and she feels the urgency to improve the relationship. and their scripts. Oh, yeah, that's the heartbreaking thing. I'll come from a family like this as well, Edie, where there's been so much alienation because of generations of undiagnosed autism that trying to break through the misunderstandings is tough. You know, it's tough that when love isn't enough, when you love your children so much, or they love you, and you still can't break through to say, hey, we just have a communication style problem. It's not your mother. It's not your father. It's not you. It's that just like I was talking about Linda and the dishwasher. Over the years, there's been these transactional mix-ups with the interactional style, and we've just given up. That's what Linda said. She says, I just give up and let him have his way. Don't give up. Don't give up. And do your best to acknowledge that the other person's anger or frustration with you is because they don't know that we're using different styles. I wish I had a better answer for that. I mean, my heart breaks over my children as well, who don't believe I know anything. Let's see here. Getting down to the bottom here again. Oh, yeah, Susan says some of these tips don't work with my ASD partner. He thinks I'm being dismissive of his view. It's true. You have to have enough chutzpah to carry this one off. It's hard, but you know, it's important to say, this doesn't work for me. I appreciate your help, but this doesn't help. If they don't want to listen, that there might be another system at play, it's really tough. You know, that's where the therapist may be able to talk to your partner when you can't. I also recommend my course. What's really cool about my online course is that your neurodiverse partner can take it along with you, and it's not just you trying to explain this. You know, they're hearing it from Dr. Marshak, right? They're hearing it from Dr. Marshak, and it's like, well, maybe there's something else there. You know, maybe there's something my wife's been trying to tell me, or my husband's been trying to tell me that I just didn't comprehend. And then again, coming to the monthly webinars and hearing other people say these things really does wake people up, because that's the goal, right? The goal is to wake us up and to realize we've been making mistakes. The mistakes us neurotypicals have been making is assuming that all we have to do is try harder to reach that person and they will know what we mean. It doesn't work. We have to speak their transactional language. And it is transactional, Susan, to say, enough. I don't need the help. Thank you. I appreciate your help, but it's no help. Oh gosh, Susan, this is a great comment. I'm sorry he's doing this. She says he is working the course with me. He just turns everything that is explained to make it my fault. Okay, maybe this is a great one to bring up in the webinar, if he will join you there too. That transactional approach is, if this, then this. See, they are good at blaming, and because they're looking for the reason that it's not working. If you would only say it this way, I wouldn't be mad. As opposed to, maybe you should take some responsibility for being angry, and that you didn't understand me. Maybe it goes both ways, right? It takes two people, right? It's not about somebody's fault. It's not about blaming and shaming the other person. It's about saying, oh, I guess I wasn't clear when I said, hey, can we sit down and talk? This is typical neurotypical stuff. We always say this. Hey, I'd like to talk to you. And what does your neurodiverse person do when you say, hey, I'd like to talk with you? What do? They go, ah, huh, oh no. he or she wants to talk. I don't know what they want to talk about. They get all anxious. And the more anxious they get, the less they can talk. All right, so we neurotypicals need to talk transactional language. We need to send a text saying, after dinner, I'd like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. We tell them what it is. We warn them ahead of time so they're prepared. But if a neurotypical says to another neurotypical, hey, do you have some time to talk? We all practically always say, sure. We have to say, sure. Or you might say, well, what do you want to talk about? We don't fly into a panic. And they panic because they are not good at reading between the lines. So an open-ended conversation, which is what neurotypicals do, we have interactive, collaborative. By collaborative, if you think about it, the conversation is going to go where it goes between two people. That's scary for the transactional person who needs to know what's up. Where's this going? What do you want from me? Right? So it takes a while to go through the course and to realize nobody's at fault, but let's try to engage in more interaction, not just get to the point. I hope that makes sense. Did I miss anybody else here? Because we're almost out of time. Another thing I want to say about the course, and I think Susan's comment is really good, this is the first time that your neurodiverse partner is hearing this stuff. A lot of the things I'm talking about, the neurotypical has heard before in another form or other, in therapy or in books and so forth. It might be the first time you're hearing that we have different operating systems of transactional and interactional. There's a lot of new stuff in there too. But your neurodiverse person is not very introspective. That's why therapy doesn't work. They don't look at life to say, I wonder how this conversation I'm having with my wife or with my therapist is going to improve me. They don't do that. They just want to know what the point is. So it takes a while. Sometimes they go through the course 3 or 4 or 5 times before they start to understand there's more to it than that. And I think I've answered the first question that got sent in to me too, from Cape Town, South Africa. This man is realizing that not only does his son have autism and pathological demand avoidance, but so does his wife. And it's a big shock, to discover that your partner has the same diagnosis as the child, although it shouldn't be a surprise because it is genetic. It's also tough to find information regarding women on the spectrum. Women have learned to mask better than most men on the spectrum, so it does take a while to find resources regarding how to deal with women. Again, take my course, because I talk about women. And in fact, one of my favorite women on the spectrum is Hannah Gadsby. She's a comedian. And I talk a lot about Hannah's presentation, her humor, everything, the way she interacts with other people, standard autism. It's just classic. And through her humor and her coming to like herself better, I think you can learn about how to reach out to the women you love who are on the spectrum. Another good, I always recommend reading my books, like the latest one, Empathy is More Than Words. And my first one, Going Over the Edge. But there are some books written by women on the spectrum that you can read. And remember, you're going to get a spectrum perspective. I think that's helpful for neurotypicals. It's not necessarily going to understand you, but one of my favorite books is by Leanne Holiday. And the title is Pretending to be Normal. And if you don't catch that on the video, I'll do my best to put it in the comment section later. Pretending to be Normal. And Leanne was attending an evaluation of her daughter and learned that her daughter was on the spectrum. And as she was being told what the symptoms were, she realized she was on the spectrum too. So she began a journey to understand that better. She wanted to know more how that affects her and her family. And then another question, totally separate, from another one of our members who sent in two parts to this question. Is one is she's bringing up the intimacy problem, the sex problem, um, that it can often fall apart. Intimacy can fall apart in a relationship where there's an empathy dysfunction. Of course, that's true. If you think about sex, intimacy is communication. It's interactive. It's collaborative. It's the ultimate in collaboration if you think about it for a couple. And if you'd have a person who's more transactional, then sex becomes an act as opposed to a collaboration between people. So this requires a lot of therapy to break through this. The other comment is a small one. This woman said that she didn't get to attend an event because she was blocked from attending. And when you sign up for MeetUp, you get 30 days to look around. And then if you don't pay your annual fee of $25, then you aren't able to attend anything. So it is important that you either determine that you're not going to continue or that you pay your fee. And then if you want to join the Advanced Community Forum, you just pay an annual fee to join, and then you can attend everything and you never get blocked out. So I think what happened to this woman is she just didn't pay her fee and didn't know that the time had expired. So that's about all I have for today. Let's see here. Linda also says, are there similar characteristics of women who marry ND men? Yeah, I think you're talking about the neurotypical, whether you're male or female, neurotypical or neurodiverse. And the patterns are the same. Sure, there's the transactional logic. There's the inability to read between the lines. There's putting the emotions in a box and not realizing that your neurotypical male or female partner is waiting to have you share the connection. So that the patterns are the same. It's just that what we tend to see is that women on the spectrum have adapted better masking. They're better at sort of, like Leanne said, pretending to be normal. That's her title. And yet, her neurotypical partner is going to notice that pretending isn't quite there. And then there can also be the meltdowns, the criticism, the distress at having to dig deeply into our relationship. Neurotypicals want to talk about our relationship, and neurodiverse people just kind of freeze up like, oh, please don't make me do that. So, this is about as much as we know right now, but whenever I have a neurotypical married to a neurodiverse person, it doesn't matter if it's male or female, or two women together, or two males together. In fact, I had a homosexual male couple, and the neurodiverse husband was saying, could you just explain to my neurotypical husband, could you just explain that he doesn't have to tell me all those extra things that he puts into the conversation. He just needs to get to the point because it's really annoying to me and it just gets me off track. And he said, so he's asking the therapist, could you just explain that to my neurotypical? And so I said, well, actually, your neurotypical isn't wasting words. He's attempting to connect. He's setting up the format for our discussion. He's bringing in his heart, and he's asking you to share your heart. And the neurodiverse husband sat there, and he said, he got it, though. It was really cool. He said, he burst into tears. He said, I had no idea I was making you shut up when you were trying to share yourself with me. Oh, there's one more question. Good. From Spain. So I suppose that makes it a Spanish question. Do you think there's time to answer? Yes. But the problem was, I remember, Alina, it was a long page, and I only looked at it this morning, so I didn't have a chance to get to it. Do you want to put it briefly in the comment section? don't know if she has time to write all of that. Can you? Otherwise, I was gonna get to it next time. I think she's maybe thinking about it. Not to worry. If you send your questions in, I will answer them. It just may be we don't have time to do it today. And sometimes people will even post questions in the comment section, and I will go back and do my best to answer it. I can't answer a lot of clinical questions, but I can give you some basic education that then you can take back to your therapy or to your partner and talk about it. So I'm sorry I didn't get to the question, Alina. I saw it and I was trying to read it before I was getting online here to work, to do the Dr. Kathy's office hours. But I will bring it up for our next office hours, and I can also post an answer for you. So, okay, everybody, make sure that you go to the websites. I've listed all the links up there. You can check out what's going on in the MeetUp group, the Advanced Community Forum, and the online course. They're all valuable. The more you educate yourself about these two very different systems, then you'll understand that empathy doesn't cut it all the time. We need other systems to there, Alina's starting to put the question in there. I'm going to have to get to that later, Alina. Anyway, go to the web, go to these, go learn more about this stuff, and then come back and ask more questions. Because the more we interact, the more we get it, the more we break away from our preconceived notions of the way it works, the better it's going to be. Because it's not going to work neurotypical, it's not going to work just neurodiverse. We have to build what I call the interface protocol. We have to use a system. I've got a 7-step system that I talk about in my course and my book that helps you cross over and speak to the other person and try to cut through the negativity. And I think that's what Alina's talking about. There's a lot of negativity that comes up, and it's hard to break through it when people are just darned angry. So, I hope to hear from you soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.